Hello all. So this is a short video to talk about critique groups and why we critique and why it's important to make sure that we do this thing that's kind of like really uncomfortable for writers. First of all, the reason why we critique is that the Hyung said that the issues that we see in society are issues that we have in ourselves. And so there's something kind of psychological that happens when you read a story where the things that you critique in the story are often things that you're struggling with yourself. And so it's really important and healthy for you to be able to critique people who are at the same writing level that you are so that you can see what's normal in terms of writing struggles for that level of writing. So that's one reason why we critique. Another reason why we critique is because it's really important that that the reader has the experience of understanding empathy in writing. That somebody is going to be reading a story that of a human being who wrote it. Weird. It's really important for the writer to be critiquing because the writer needs to understand exactly what is going on in their story, how readers are reading it. The writer needs to have many viewpoints so that the writer can make a good decision about revision. The reader also needs to understand how to critique, just like you would for a short story that's published in the Green Book. You want to make sure that you're looking for a lot of the same issues with writing on this level. The writer really needs to be looking for opportunities to find places to fix, but also wants to make sure that they're authentic to their writing. So, this is where multiple viewpoints comes in because you'll be in critique groups of 7 people and then I will give you feedback. The feedback I give you, I won't be giving you until after the critiques are done. And part of that is for the reason of authority, right? If somebody's giving you feedback and you've already read mine and you're like, oh, well, Kristen said that I don't have to do that, so I don't have to listen to you, right? I don't want any of that, right? I want you to be really respectful to the people who critique your stuff, and I want you to be able to read my critique with an open mind after you've read the critiques of your peers. So that's the purpose of critique session and kind of the expectations for it. Let me look at my little notes here. Okay, how do you give good feedback? Okay, real quick, I'm going to change screens so that I can look at our class for week 5. You see a couple of things. First of all is a PDF called filters. Like, what are filters? This is a lot of telling detail. Most of it is a lot of looking behavior. So that's one thing. We have a couple of other things, how to become a writer. I have a PowerPoint uploaded on Point of View. This is an example, the next article is an example of second person. It's called How to Tell a Mother Her Child is Dead. It's from the New York Times. I have uploaded a PDF from Writer's Digest on how to keep readers reading. I have 2 videos from Lorraine Herring. Lorraine Herring is the program director at Yavapai College for Creative Writing. Her first video is the reader expectations of story, and the second one is called Character Misbelief. And so a couple videos to look at there. There's also some PowerPoint versions of that. And then in terms of feedback, I also have a couple things that I want you to look at. It's after the discussion boards. I have it's called CRW 140 sample manuscript, and then I have a sample manuscript critique, and then I have critique and feedback guidelines. Please read those. The sample manuscript is a real Yavapai College writing student, and the critique is a real critique. Now, neither the writer of the manuscript nor the critique writer were my students. In fact, this sample manuscript has been around so long that I read them when I was a creative writing student at Yavapai. So they've been around for a long time. It does not mean that they are not worth reading, because I want you to get a very real idea of what some of the problems are in manuscripts and how you can handle that feedback well. Because, we live in a very hyperbolic society where you'll read something and be like, wow, this was the worst thing I've ever read. And then you tell your friends and everyone laughs because, oh, it's so funny. But you can't say that, right? You can't turn to somebody who's poured their heart and soul into a creative writing short story, and you can't turn to them and say, wow, this is the worst thing I've ever read. Like, you just can't do that. And if you do that, you and I are going to have some words, because you need to be respectful. You need to say constructive things. And you can see that the sample manuscript has some glaring errors. And you can see how the sample manuscript critique handles all of that in a very kind and diplomatic way. Ultimately, I don't want you to lie to your peer, right? If it truly is the worst thing you've ever read, and you can't say that, then what do you say? You don't say, wow, this was really good, period. No, that's almost worse. So instead, you need to find a way to give feedback. And like I've told my students before, probably the best way to format feedback is to have one paragraph of something that's positive, something that you liked about it, some kind of reader response that's like, I really enjoyed this part of it, or this part of it really grabbed me. Paragraph 2 should generally be where you are more, you're critiquing the piece more. So you would say something like, please watch your spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Please take a look at the scene on page 3. I don't really feel like the dialogue is authentic. Watch out for talking heads. The characters are talking too much and not using any dialogue tags, and I have no idea what's going on. That kind of thing. And then your third paragraph, again, would back up and say something nice about the piece. Yeah, with just a few revisions, this is really, really good, or something like that. I call this sandwiching. You want to make sure that you sandwich the bad with 2 goods. And actually, what's interesting is it's kind of neuroscientific in a way, because I've recently read a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life by Daniel Amen. And a negative thought will actually change the chemistry of your brain, because it's wiring a connection, a neurobiological connection. And it takes 2 positive thoughts to outweigh every 1 negative thought. So there you go. So sandwich your comments. Make sure that you say 2 nice things for every not nice thing or critical thing. It's not that it's not nice. It's just that it's critical. The other thing that I really want you to pay attention to in the week 5 post is the Daring Greatly Manifesto. And Brené Brown is a self-help writer, nonfiction writer, who has this book called Daring Greatly, and the whole concept is that we need to be vulnerable in order to do anything great with our lives. And she's taken the Daring Greatly concept from a rather long quote by Teddy Roosevelt, all about how even if you fail daring greatly, that you've put yourself out there, that you're the person who's in the arena, that you're working hard and you're working valiantly, and even if you fail, you've still won, because you're that much better than the people who sit back and do nothing. It's a great quote. I highly recommend you look it up. But she created a Daring Greatly manifesto that she has in the back of the book that you can adapt for classes. Hey. And so this is the Daring Greatly manifesto. And so I don't want you to be ready giving or receiving feedback until this is true for you. So let me go ahead and read it. I know I'm ready to give feedback when I can picture sitting with you as if we're having coffee. And this is, again, why you have videos in week 1, so that you can see that everybody is a real person. I'm willing to put the writing material in front of us rather than between us. I'm ready to listen, ask questions, and accept that I may not fully understand creative writing. I want to acknowledge what you do well instead of picking apart your mistakes. I recognize your strengths and how you can use them to address challenges in your writing. I can hold you accountable to things we've learned in class without shaming you or blaming you. I'm willing to own my part of the work and reading in this class. I can genuinely thank you for your efforts rather than criticize you for your feelings. I can talk about how resolving these challenges will lead to your growth and opportunity. And I can model the vulnerability and openness that I expect to see from you. So none of these sentences ask you to do anything that's outside the realm of possibility, right? Like, none of you should be shaming or blaming, right? All of you should be addressing challenges in your writing. None of you should be picking apart people by their mistakes. I want you all to have the opportunity for growth and learning, right? So these things are all fairly basic things, but it's important that you read that before you give and receive feedback so that you make sure that you're in a good mental place to give and receive feedback. And that's about it. I wanted to make sure that we talked about feedback and critique groups, because while some of you have been peer reviewing in the writing posts, peer reviewing a short story is a little different. It requires a little more intention. It requires a little more engagement. So I wanted to make sure that we had that video and checked that box and covered that component so that you understand exactly what goes into it. Alrighty, thank you.